Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, or maybe it's welcome back. We are thrilled to have you, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Wise Ones. And taking this journey with me is a dear friend, someone I work very closely with. He is a co-host here at USA Global TV. He's also one of our expert presenters on Talking Heads, and he's an elevated listener, which means he listens with a space for you to share whatever it is. He will not judge, he does not provide solutions, and he will not interrupt. What does this all mean? He's one of the wise ones, and that's why he's here today. Let's bring him on. Hello, Red O'Loughlin. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. Always great to see you.
Always great to see you as well. And, you know, for your introduction, I could go on and on and on because you've accomplished so much. But people need to watch your Talking Head series and they can learn all about you.
Today, right after this show, actually, just about an hour from now, I'll be presenting the 6 out of 6 shows on age-related diseases. I'll be finishing up with the last 2 topics on causes of Alzheimer's and what can you get and what options you really have that are viable.
And then you are moving on to another discussion topic, which will be?
The next one, again, a week from today, will be on essentially how to write and publish a book for free. Yes, it can be done, not a single penny out of your pocket. And we'll go through everything from the original startup of how you actually find a topic, who's your competitor, what impact, a lot of different things on the front end before you ever put pencil to paper. And then we'll go through the whole process. You get the book done, how you can get the thing edited literally for free, almost for free, for free. And then how to publish it and what options you have for marketing it. So that's the focus of the next at least half a dozen shows. I'm still working on the outline, but we're going to start with the thought and how do you actually get started, and that's what'll happen a week from today.
Thank you so much, Red. And before we bring out your fabulous guest, I'm going to spotlight you. And for people who are joining for the first time and they want to know who is Red O'Loughlin and what is the value that he brings to this beautiful world.
Thank you so very much, Dr. JACALYN. I'm a writer, a speaker, an author, and a publisher. My first love was chemistry, long before I met my wife of 53 years now. And I research what goes on in the human body at the cellular level. Chemically speaking, I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat a symptom, you'll always treat the symptom. So that's what I look for. That's what I research. I'm a researcher. I'm not a doctor, never been associated with any pharmaceutical company. And so when I write my books and I speak and I write my blogs, I have almost 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, about 1,400 blogs on my website. Those are my primary focus. But here today, we're doing a talking head. So we're talking about talking and listening, speaking and listening. And that's a big part of any professional, is being able to not only get their message across, add value to the audience, but also be able to listen so that we're not interfering with anybody else.
Thank you, Red. And I want our audience to know that you helped me publish my first book, and my second one is coming out April the 4th. It's available in pre-order right now. So without further ado, Red, who is our fabulous guest today?
Mike Kowis, Kowis. He's a dear friend of mine. He is a corporate tax attorney. He's a business law professor. He's an author and a speaker, and sometimes he even races with his son.
Let's welcome him to the program. Hello, welcome, Mike.
Hi, glad to be here.
Nice to have you here. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm from the Conroe, Texas area, which is about 30 miles north of Houston.
Okay, we're happy to have you.
Which is about 45 miles from me right this minute. Right. Okay, Mike. We know each other primarily through the Nonfiction Authors Association. In fact, we have a meeting next week. You've spoken at that group several times over the years. The topics that you talk about are based on your personal success. Uh, but before we, yeah, why don't we just jump into that one? Because that's a good topic to be in. You're an author, you publish a book. Okay, fine. You can write on your resume, I'm a published author. But sometimes we actually like to get some money for some of the sales.
Woo, what
And
a concept.
and you kind of started out and spent a lot of money on advertising. And I'm going to let you tell the story about how you actually started getting return on your investment.
Sure, that's a great topic, Red. So I've had 5 books out now. All of them are nonfiction. And when I wrote my first book, I did a typical newbie mistake, which is I spent way too much money, like almost 7 grand, to self-publish and market my book through the first 90 days. So I've learned a lot of lessons from that experience. I mean, it took me about 4 years to write the book and self-publish it, and so it was a long journey. I was very excited when it came out. And I did get some decent sales. I think the book is, and that was 5 years ago when it came out, but I've sold about 1,400 copies of that particular title, and very proud of that. Um, but I overspent and I still haven't earned my money back on that. So that was a lesson learned for sure. And then my second book, which is actually a self publishing guide called 14 Steps to Self Publishing a Book. This book has been really a godsend because I I have had really good luck with sales on that one. I spent only $1,500 on it because I learned a lot of lessons from the first book, not to overspend on everything from cover design. You don't have to spend $1,000 for a good cover designer. I learned that lesson. And so I had other lessons I learned along the way about, maybe I overdid it on the marketing. I entered too many book contests and things like that. So for the second book, the self publishing guide, I've sold, I'm very excited about this, 3,400 copies in the last 5 years, let's say. So it's done remarkably well. I only spent 1,500, so I've made my money back and then some. So yeah, I learned a lot of lessons from that first experience. And since then, I've continued to write and try to be careful with how much money I spend on each book. That way I have a better chance of being profitable.
So one of the keys is also tracking your income versus your expenses.
Absolutely. I give a lot of speeches, as you said, to small author groups. I gave one last Saturday, for example, and the topic was what authors need to know about small business and taxes. So, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it's very good information. Everybody should be aware of. And one of the big ticket takeaways from that speech is that authors really need to be careful about not only their spending but tracking their spending. So, for me, I just use a simple Excel spreadsheet and I just mark it up every month with the royalties I earn from all the various books. And I also try to mark all my expenses that are related to speaking and writing books and marketing. And I keep track of all those. And then at the end of the year, it makes life much easier when you're filling out the tax return and you're able to deduct everything. You don't try to remember everything. So, yeah, keeping track of your sales are super important if you want to be profitable, and it also helps you with your marketing efforts. So if you want to know if something new that you're trying, whether it's a new advertisement or a price reduction or whatever the promotion is, if you want to know it's working, you have to measure your sales before, during, and after. So how do you do that? You're going to have to look at your sales, look at your author dashboard, figure out your sales, and then keep track of it. So that's another benefit of keeping track of your sales and your income.
Yes, income tax is an interesting part of our country. And being an author allows you a lot more expenses to deduct off income tax than just being a normal person. However, it's you do have to track it, as Mike said. Now, I went ahead and kept the spreadsheet. I had almost 500 line items of things I had to compile. I sent it to my accountant in Australia last week. He sent me the results yesterday. I'm getting something back. I'm so happy. And I sent him an email this morning, said, file it. We're ready to go. It's approved, ready to roll. So anyway, those things happen. But when you're in a business, small business of any kind, you have so many more tax advantages than others. Do you want to cover a couple of those just so the audience knows?
Sure. So one of the biggest things to be aware of is if you operate your small business, be it authorship, if you're an author, or any other small business, really. The trick that you want to be aware of, the thing to be aware of, is that the IRS will distinguish between a hobby, right, versus an actual business. And the main driver there that the IRS looks at is your profit motive. And that really just to show the IRS that you mean business, that this is intended to be a economic, worthwhile, profitable enterprise. You want to show that you're committed to the amount of time that you put into it. It's not like a hobby you just do every once in a while when you feel good. And you want to show that you're marketing the book and you're making legitimate efforts to improve sales and improve profitability. And so keeping track, even on my spreadsheet where I keep track of my sales and my income and my expenses, I would go so far as to put down different marketing techniques that I try. So even though it may not even involve money, maybe I'm doing a new social media campaign or something like that, I would mark that in my ledger so I can show the IRS one day if I'm ever audited, hey, this is a legitimate business enterprise. Here are all the things I've been trying to move my books and sell the books, and the different speeches I'm trying and all kinds of different activities. Just the more information you have to show that it's a true business and not a hobby, the better, because as Red was indicating, if you are not treating it like a business and you don't have a separate checking account and you're keeping the money separate for your personal versus the book side of things, the IRS may say, wait a minute, is this really a hobby? Because if it's a hobby, you're going to have a really difficult time getting those tax deductions, especially after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That took effect, I think it was December of 2017, and that basically took away a lot of the miscellaneous deductions you used to be able to claim. So now if you're a hobbyist, you're really going to have a hard time deducting most everything. Very few deductions left. So you really want to be careful to treat it like a business, and that may involve setting up a sole proprietorship, which is what I did for my book business. And that's a very simple, easy process to do. It's not complicated at all. Some people want to do an LLC. That's fine too. That works, or a C corp or an S corp. But for most small businesses, you're probably looking at a sole proprietorship, maybe an LLC. You want to talk to your CPA or tax advisor and figure out what's right for you. But if you set it up and you treat the money separately, you keep track of your expenses, you spend adequate time on it, chances are you'll be successful in being able to claim all those deductions.
Now, you're a corporate tax attorney.
I am. Don't hold that against me.
I am not. Georgetown University, if I remember right.
Right. Yeah, that's the law school I went to. That's correct.
And you came to Texas and you had an opportunity to teach at Lone Star College in the business department. And then all of a sudden you became an author, but not in the thing we think about. Your initial offering was to the school, right?
Yeah, my first book was actually about college teaching tips. And so I love teaching. I feel like I have the heart of a teacher, at least I like to think so. And so that's kind of always been a passion of mine. And so I started teaching at Lone Star, I guess it was 2001. So it was about 20 years now. And I just teach at night, one night a week, and in the fall and the spring, and usually business law, although I have taught corporate tax as well. But I like business law just because it's a little different. My day job is all day, every day, corporate tax. And so it's kind of fun to go in, teach a 3-hour night class in person, and talk about things I don't see every day. I talk a lot about contract law, a little bit about criminal law, and civil procedure, and all kinds of other topics. How to set up businesses and C corps and partnerships and things. So it's to me, it's very interesting. It's a very fun, lively class. And when I wrote my first book, I was basically sharing all the best practices that I discovered along the way, being an adjunct for 15 plus years. So that was what my first book was about, and it's called Engaging College Students: A Fun and Edgy Guide for Professors. So this is my first book, and it was a labor of love, if you will. It took 4 long years to write it. Quick tip: if you're thinking about writing a book, I highly recommend that you pick a topic that you're passionate about, because chances are you're more likely to finish the book. I mean, for me, it was a 4-year long journey to write this thing and then self-publish it. And so for me, if I hadn't been passionate about it, there's no way I would have finished it. So it's very important that I recommend anyone who wants to write a book someday, think about topics you're passionate about. And those are the ones you're more likely to pick up again after the holidays when you're tired and you're really not really into it. But if it's something you feel, passionate about, something you're driven by, you're more likely to go back to it, pick it up, and keep on working. So that'd be a little tip for anybody out there thinking about being an author.
Another tip to think about is as you speak as an author, that gives you a lot more audience, a lot more chance to talk to people directly, and you are a very good speaker. How did you get involved in that other than having the lawyer background?
Sure, great discussion. Funny enough, my very first author talk was for the Nonfiction Authors Association in Houston. I think it was around May of 2017, so maybe 6 months after my first book came out. And so Kate Frank, she was the initial leader of the Nonfiction Authors Association group in Houston, and she asked me to come speak about my self-publishing guide, the 14 Steps book. And so I did. I came and I spoke, and I went to a few meetings before my session, so I would, understand what was expected and sort of the procedure and all that, and get comfortable with the audience. And it was a small group that day. I think when I spoke, there's like half a dozen people, but it didn't matter. It could have been 100 people. I was just nervous. I didn't know what I was doing, but I somehow mumbled my way through it, and everyone, they asked good questions, and everything went well. And since then, I've been very consistently doing about 15 to 20 author talks a year, sometimes at big conferences where I'll do breakout sessions. I may have 25 people in the room or something. And this is all pre-COVID, of course. And some of them have been like author groups like the Nonfiction Authors Association or other places. And I've gone to colleges and spoken. So I did a writing conference 3 years in a row called Indie Palooza at Rice University. So I've done a lot of speaking, and every time I do it, it's good practice. It really is just like teaching, because I teach a night class, like I mentioned, and it's a 3 hour long class. So if you're not going to learn how to speak to people in a 3 hour class, I guess you never will. So that's kind of my background and how I got to become a speaker.
I love the diversification you have in your life. It seems very interesting.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a jack of all trades, but master of none.
So what do you do in your spare time? What do you do for fun, Mike?
Oh, so actually, one of the things I love doing is off-road racing, and it probably comes from being a boy growing up in East Texas, out in the woods. Lived close to the Trinity River, and I used to play in the woods and the sandbars with my friends. And then we became teenagers, and I saved up for a couple of years and bought a little three-wheeler. At the time, they were three-wheelers, not four-wheelers. So a little ATV, and I would just explore the woods, like Huckleberry Finn or something, and really enjoyed the freedom and just being in the great outdoors and the beauty of it all. And so later I discovered off-road racing, and I guess that was around 1994. And I got into off-road racing. They call it cross-country racing. And basically the idea is someone will set up a track. It could be 3 miles long, 5 miles long, 9 miles long. And it's in the woods, and you drive through creeks and up in hills and over rocks and cactus. And it's really just an outdoor path. Sometimes it's grassy fields, and it's just out in nature. And it can be sunny and hot. It can be cold and rainy. You just never know. But it's truly an off-road adventure, and you're trying to do as many laps as you can in 1 hour. And it's a lot of fun. And then I guess about 7 years ago, I got into side-by-side racing, which is a two-seater vehicle. It's kind of like a golf cart on steroids, if you will. And my son, who's a teenager at the time, he was my co-pilot. So we got to do these off-road races together. And that was a great bonding experience. And to this day, we still race together. He doesn't come to every race. He's in college now, but he comes to a lot of them. And we have a blast. And it's, making memories that'll last a long time. I even wrote a book about it called Texas Off-Road Racing. And that came out about almost 2 years ago. And we won the championship in our little series in 2019. So that was a fun little project. I haven't really sold that many copies, less than 100, but it was a great way to document the good times. And hopefully he'll be able to pass it on to his son one day, my grandson, if I'm ever blessed to have one. And so I thought it was a great way to sort of document the good times we had so that they'll remember,
Dr. JACALYN, it's just about break time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was going to say, I love the dichotomy of it, sort of with the taxes, and you would think conservative, right? Ultra conservative, and then the opposite, risk taker.
Yeah, all over the board, right?
That's what makes life fun, for sure. All right, we are going to take a break and we will be back shortly. During the break, if you are interested in placing any comments for Mike, any questions that you might have, we'd be happy to take them, or even anything for Red. We have people watching us, as I mentioned, on numerous platforms. I think it's 8. But right now, we're going to take a moment, and then we'll be right back.
Take a moment.
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 So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. All of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, an ever-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.
Меня зовут Маша, мне 9 лет, я живу в Красногоровке, у меня все хорошо. Кушать у нас есть, пить у нас есть, сахар у нас есть, все есть. Только дров не хватает. На буржуйке, когда у нас есть, вот эти мы дрова пособираем, закинем, оно горит. Например, в 10 запалили, в 11 закончили, вода нагрелась, и все, и мы купаемся.
В наш дом 4 было прямых попаданий, так что мы боимся. Человека даже осколками поранило, забрали в больницу с 6-го подъезда соседа, так что мы тоже боимся, у нас много деток. Деваться нам некуда, нас никто нигде не ждет.
Когда вырасти, я хочу найти работу такую, чтобы я помогала людям, которые бедные, там.
And in that book, I talk about the history of the IRS and the tax code, current tax forms, tax audits, all things tax. It's a fun little book. So if anybody's a trivia buff out there, I recommend that one highly. Or if you just want to learn about the American tax system, it's a fun way to learn. So as far as small business owners, I guess the number one tip would be to keep track of that income and all the related expenses. Keep the money separate. I've already kind of gone over those tips. Other things to think about, and I assume a lot of folks are going to want to go to their own tax advisor or even just use H&R Block. I'm a tax attorney by day. That's what I do in my day job. So I do it on my own taxes. I use TurboTax, but I've found minor errors now and again, not very often. It's pretty good product, but even that one is not perfect in my opinion. So I think make sure you have a good tax advisor. That's probably a number one tip there. Even if it's just H&R Block, or if you're not going to do that, make sure you understand all the rules. And there are lots and lots of rules about small businesses and QBI, things like that, qualified business income, which is after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. As a lot of people were aware, large corporations, their tax rate went from 35% maximum to 21%, which is a huge help. But it also helped a lot of small businesses. And it basically takes a 20% haircut off of your qualified business income. So you get a little 20% haircut, if you will, off the taxable income for certain small businesses. So you want to be aware whether your business qualifies for that 20% haircut, if you will, after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act took effect. So that's one thing to be aware of, making sure you have a good advisor, and they're going to want to make sure you're keeping track of your receipts and keeping track of all your expenses like we talked about on Excel or any other program you have. And some people may not even think about it, but your mileage is a great tip. So every time I go to the Nonfiction Authors Association, this is pre-COVID, now everything's online, but just traveling down to that, or if I go buy a book on how to market my books, I want to deduct that too. So think about things like mileage and books, training. If you do an online training and it costs you a little bit of money or a lot of money, you can deduct that if it's related to your business. So just be thinking about that. Some people also want to take or consider taking a deduction for a home office. Just be aware, though, if you do that, it kind of raises red flags. In other words, you're more likely to get audited by the IRS if you get too aggressive. So if you are going to go down that path and take a home office deduction, just be aware of all the rules. Make sure you're only using that office for your business, not for personal reasons, and business reasons. So if you meet all the rules, it's fine. Nothing wrong with taking that deduction. Just want to make sure you're careful, because you are putting yourself up for at least an increased risk of getting audited. So those are just some tips to think about.
Great tips, Mike. And I just bought your book, so I'm excited.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned driving. One of the things that I do is that if I know for sure I'm going, let's say I'm going to a meeting in 20 miles away, another suburb of Texas for all practical purposes, and I know I also have to pick up some cleaning, and I also go stop by the laundry and or the grocery store or whatever. If I just go to the cleaners and come back home, if I go to the grocery store and come back home, those are not deductible.
Right.
Mileage is. However, if I go to my meeting event and it's 20 miles away and I come back and they're all in line, and so let's say 20 miles coming back, 21 miles, I can stop that. Because I stopped doesn't have anything to do with my business, but I have to get back home. So that return mileage counts. So I can actually use, if I think about my planning well in advance, I can drive and come back and use the total mileage because I had to get back home anyway. Now, if I'd gone out another 30 miles somewhere else, obviously not. But if it's literally in most of the places around here where I go to, it is in line, then I can accomplish some personal things on business mileage. Is that a fair statement?
I think a lot of people do treat it that way because chances are the IRS will never know you stopped off at Starbucks on the way or home. I think that's something minor like that. You could do that, and you probably are safe as far as getting audited and being able to do that. I think technically speaking, for example, if I went to a training session for my day job, and I just went to one in Houston last week, technically, when I write off my mileage, I don't write it off because my employer reimburses me, but they'll only reimburse me for the deductible portion, which is the difference between my daily commute, assuming I still go to an office every day. If I drive 10 miles round trip to my office and back, but the training session I went to in Houston is let's say 60 miles round trip, I could only technically deduct the 50-mile difference. So, it's that much further than my daily commute. So that's kind of the way I look at this business. If you would normally, and I'm not saying you go to the grocery store every day, Red, because you don't look like you eat that much, but if you did eat, and you went every single day, if that's what you did, to the grocery store, and then one day you went a little bit further to go do some event for your author books, technically, maybe you should have only deducted the difference. Again, I don't think that's normal. Most people don't go to the grocery store, or maybe they go to Starbucks every day, but I don't think the IRS is likely to even care or know about something that small, that minor, especially if you're only driving occasionally. It's not like a daily thing that you do to go to these different author events. In which case, if you do, you just want to be careful to document the actual mileage that you spent for the book business versus personal business. But again, I think you're fine, Red. I don't think you have anything to worry about if that's what you're doing. You're probably fine.
I appreciate the clarification. And yes, I don't eat much, especially since Lent started. I actually went yesterday and ate for the first time since Ash Wednesday.
Wow.
I went over 180 hours on a fast, just water and unsweet tea.
Wow.
Amazing.
Good
Normally
for
I do
you.
a seven. Normally I do a 3-day, 72-hour fast every month. This month I did 180 hours, and
That's incredible.
ironically, I think I could go on another 72 and not even blinked.
Mm.
It's once I get in the zone, I am just floating. It's just easy, easy, easy. In fact, speaking of floating, I closed my eyes during that commercial, Dr. JACALYN. I almost didn't want to open them. But getting back to you talked about something, and this is I got from another tax session somewhere way back when. If I'm dry, let's say if I have a 3-day session that I want to do, training session for my book publishing business or my writing or what, and it's in Jacksonville, Florida, 1,000 miles from Houston. If I fly, obviously my hotel, my food, my travel expenses, all that's deductible. However, if I drive over there, it's 2 days of driving 1,000 miles, 2 days driving back, and I'm only there 3 days. My expenses, obviously, the travel expenses, 1,000 miles are deductible. But what really and truly in some scenario like that is considered legitimate deductions.
I
I
thought there
think
was a
if
limit.
the whole expense, if the whole trip is a legitimate business trip and it's not intended to be pleasure mixed with business, and even if it is, you can sort of prorate these things. So it's not like you lose all your deduction. But if you can establish that it's a legitimate business expense and it's reasonable to drive, I mean, some people just prefer to drive, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Um, I think you could probably deduct all those reasonable expenses, and it's really a reasonable test. That's what it comes down to. And I think it's certainly reasonable for small business people to go out of town, do these kind of different conventions or speaking engagements or whatever events that are relevant to their business. And you can take all those things. Now, you mentioned some things like meals. Some of those there's a 50% limit, right, on how much you can get a deduction for. But absolutely can deduct all those things. Parking, if you did get a rental car because you flew, all those things are deductible. Absolutely.
I have a question, Mike. Thank you for that information. I teach listening courses. I teach people how to listen, and listening is really a key priority in every job, right? In every aspect of our life. So it sounds like people can take that as a tax deduction for taking my courses. Is that right?
I think so. I think if it's reasonably related to their occupation or their business, absolutely. There's no reason why they couldn't. There are limitations on, if they take a miscellaneous deduction and the 2% floor or whatever the deduction is. If it's a personal 1040 versus it's a Schedule C sole proprietorship, they may be able to take more of those deductions, or an LLC or C corp. So depends on their business and their personal tax return situation. But yes, I think that would be an eligible expense that they can try to take if it's related to their business. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I noticed when you talked about some tax trivia and things like that, you have a couple really good website, social media sites, your Facebook page and your LinkedIn page. And I think recently, or maybe even today, I was looking at says what state imposes a $5 customer tax if they serve alcohol or something like that. So,
Right.
what are some really unusual tax things that you've found in your writing your book?
Well, the tip you mentioned, so I take one day a week, and I'll share on my social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I'll share interesting uh, tidbit trivia questions, if you will, from my latest book, American Tax Trivia. And the one you're alluding to or mentioned, it's basically I asked the question, which state below has a $5 per customer tax on strip clubs? And the answer was actually Texas. Texas has, since 2007, they have I think it's called the Sexually Oriented Business Fee Act that was enacted in 2007. And when they enacted that, the idea was they would collect $5 per customer if you go to any business that offers live nude entertainment and serves alcohol to the customers. So they would collect $5 per customer, and then the state uses that to help victims of sexual abuse. And so that was the program, but it's kind of an oddity because there's not many states that have this strip club, this poll tax, if you will. Trying to be a little facetious, but so they have this fee. It's obviously intended for good purposes, and it was actually challenged in court, oddly enough. And in 2014, the Texas Supreme Court upheld the tax, the fee, and they did say it's it's a valid fee, and so it's still continued to be collected today, as far as I know. So yeah, that's a little oddity. There's a lot of really strange things when I was researching this book that I discovered. Some things are widely known, like Al Capone was put in prison not for all the murders and the mayhem he caused as a gangster or mobster. Really, it was for tax evasion. So there's a lot of little oddities in the law and the tax law that I found out researching this book, and I put a lot of them in the book. So it's a fun book. Check it out. I recommend everybody read it.
I was living in California, and right outside the military base I went to at Moffett Field, I believe the city was Cupertino. They had imposed a similar kind of I want to say call it a tax if you had a live strip club. However, one of the clubs there took and filmed all of their performers and put a giant TV screen as big as they had back then right there above the bar or above the dance area, so the stripper could come out, strip with clothes on, not taking everything off, but behind her the exact same routine she did was done when she was in the buff. And so they got around that one literally by using a recording device. So no, there was no live stripping while the people were there, but it was de facto. You could see everything you'd see if you were in a live audience. So I thought that was a cute way of getting around that particular item.
Yeah, there's always loopholes, right? That's what keeps people like me it's called job security, right? So that's people are very creative sometimes.
Last question I want to ask you, Mike, is tell me about the most interesting cross country track you and your son went on. What experiences did you have?
So lots of them, and it's hard to pick just one. I will say my daughter, who's a few years older than my son, she came one time to a race. I kind of tricked her into it, and this was a lot of fun. So this was in January of 2020. So I think it was, yeah, before COVID. And the thing that was remarkable about that was she came, she was going to just take pictures. So I said, why don't you come out, meet me at the track? It was in Bastrop, Texas area, and she was in college at Texas State, about 45 minutes away. So she said, sure, she loves taking pictures anyway. So we met up, and I brought my old helmet, my old race suit. You have to wear a fireproof suit from head to toe when you race. So I said, hey, if you want to, why don't you just join me for the practice? They would do 2 practice laps before every race, just to get a little flavor of what it's like. I won't even go full speed. It's like a half speed thing, just so you can see the track. It'll be a little fun. And I was really impressed that she said, yeah, she had the guts to join me just for the practice laps. And I said, if you like it, maybe you can even race with me. If you don't, that's fine. Just take pictures on the sideline. So she raced with me the first lap during the practice lap only. And she said, oh, no way, Dad. I am not going to race with you. I am too young to die. She really thought she was going to die. She said every corner, man, she see these little drop offs or these, very dangerous, slippery areas. And she was really worried we're going to roll over or something. So on the second lap, she got more comfortable and said, "Okay, Dad, I've decided I will race you, but you have to promise that we don't roll over. Like that's something you can do. You promise that." So I was like, "Well, I'll try my best, sweetie." But I was really impressed. She ended up riding with me during the race. We won first place, which was a blast. It was kind of slippery, fun track. It wasn't too hot, wasn't dusty. Perfect weather. We won first place, and she loved every minute of it. And at the end, she said, "Dad, is it like this every time?" And I was like, "Oh, bless your heart, sweetie. I wish I could say yes, but it's a lot of times it's not. Sometimes it's grueling, 100 degrees, super dusty. You can't see where you're going. Sometimes you break down in the middle and you can't even finish the race. Sometimes it's muddy and you get covered with mud all over your goggles. You can't see where you're going." So this was like perfect, rare conditions that she rode with me that one day. But it's a great memory. We'll always have that. And I even put that race in the book just because it was like such a fun memory. She was screaming and hollering the whole time, because it's like riding a roller coaster. You go over these little jumps and down these creek crossings, and we just had such a blast. And it's a memory I'll always cherish.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Well, Dr. JACALYN, I'm going to turn it over to you to close out the show. And if you have any further questions of Mike, we can take those right now.
Thank you so much, Mike. A lot of great advice that you gave us and saved me from making a couple of calls. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to reading your book. I'm going to spotlight you. And what would you like our audience to take away from the show today? And how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, sure. Love to take this opportunity to say to anyone out there who's thinking about writing a book. Again, I've mentioned this before, but pick something you're passionate about. Go for it. When I became an author, I had no idea what it meant to be an author and how hard or what the challenges are. I didn't know any authors. I hadn't joined Nonfiction Authors Association yet. And so I had no mentors, if you will. I just kind of stumbled my way through it, but I knew I had a passion. And I think anyone out there that has a passion, and whether it's writing a book or starting a restaurant or whatever it is, I say go for it. You're going to make mistakes. That's human. We're all human. But the trick is to learn from those mistakes and just keep driving forward. And here I am today. I'm just a small-time author. I do in my spare time, and I've sold over 5,000 copies of my books in the last 5 years. So I'm really, really blessed to get those many sales and continue to do author talks and help people. And I just feel like I'm using the gifts that God gave me to help other people. And I think that's why we're all here. That's just my opinion. But I really encourage everybody out there, if you have a passion or something you really want to go that you want to try, I say do it. Just go for it. And like I said, if you make mistakes, just plan for those. They're going to happen. Learn from them and move on. So I hope that helps.
Yes, absolutely. And you want people to reach out to you via your website or email?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can check me out at MikeKowis.com, which is spelled MikeKowis, MikeKowis.com, or my email, which is also available, mike.kowis.esq@gmail.com. So it's like Mike Kowis Esquire is what ESQ stands for, @gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an honor to meet you, and I look forward to reading your book and having you come back and we can have a chat on the corner bookstore.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Until next time. Okay, fabulous interview. I'm so glad that you brought Mike to the platform, and I look forward to bringing him back again because he's a wealth of information on many subjects, Red.
Thank you so very much. Dear friend, you can ask him almost anything with regard to selling a book, marketing it. He's done it because he's made a lot of mistakes and he's learned from it and he's become wiser.
5,000 copies, that's huge.
That is huge, isn't it? Big time huge. For a single person, yeah, that's huge.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm really glad he shared about the spreadsheet. You have a spreadsheet. I don't have a spreadsheet for the books. I need to do that. Especially
It's
for
super
the
simple to
second one.
do. Excel spreadsheet and just putting down whatever the deductions are. It may be, in your particular case, it could be equipment that you're buying. It could be trips to this, whatever. They're just figure out what are your deductions and then put that at the top and then go down and put the date and the location, who you bought it from. That's those are the three that I track. Yes, I go to a Best Buy and I'm buying a microphone, which I did literally 2 days ago. Then I have that, and I did a 3 month total mileage log. Every single place I went, I wrote down what it was, what I went there for, and I took the percentage of how much of that was actually devoted exactly toward my business and how much it was pleasure. And that percentage, because I had over 90 days in a row, IRS will recognize that as being a generic for the rest of the year. And so now if I do say 10,000 miles and 80% of my business is business driving, then 8,000 miles becomes the de facto number that I would use. So I don't keep track for every single individual trip. But if I'm going to drive to, say, Austin, Texas, yes, I'm going to keep track of that just because I can, but I don't necessarily use it because I'm still going with the generic total. But it's just one of those things I track.
It makes sense. I print out all my receipts because mileage would be zero because I don't go anywhere because I'm always behind this green screen.
Well, the tip that I use, I get a receipt and I write in ink the date, the category, let's say office equipment, and the amount, because receipts have a tendency to fade over time.
They do.
And you may not fade by the time you do your taxes, but by the time you need to show somebody a record 5 years down the road, it doesn't exist anymore. Now, you can certainly scan those receipts and keep it the record that way. But I just got in the habit several years ago. I get the receipt, Office Depot, $19.12, and whatever date it is. And that way, regardless of what happens to the receipt, I have it. And it's so easy when I'm actually taking that information and putting it into the spreadsheet. I don't have to squint and figure out and pull out a magnifying glass to find out what the date was. Everything is there, boom, right there. It makes it so much easier to do.
Yeah, another great tip. Thank you for that. And Red, I'm going to spotlight you because we need to run. The next show is coming up and you have to get ready, I know. So for people who want to reach out to you, what's the best way and who would you like to contact you?
Well, if you need a speaker, particularly on health and wellness, I'm your guy. If you have a book to publish, give me a call. Let's talk about it. My website is redolaflin.com. That's RED, like the color, OLAUGHLIN.com, redolaflin.com. And I can be reached at red@redolaflin.com or at red.olaflin@gmail.com. Either one of those are sites that I check often.
Fantastic. Thank you again, my friend. I will see you shortly.
I look forward to it. Just a few minutes. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone, whether you're watching on the live or you're watching on the replay. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, in addition to being the founder and president of USA Global TV, I also have another business, which is Dr. JACALYN. And I just want to share a couple of plugs for things that I'm doing as well on Dr. JACALYN. I teach people to listen, as I mentioned before. I am a certified life and career coach. I'm a certified meditation teacher and a certified yoga instructor. And I'm also the listening mentor. If you would like to learn how to listen at an elevated level, which means, again, you don't judge people when they're speaking, you don't try to provide solutions, you don't interrupt people, please go over to my website and join my elevated listening community. And that's also where you can sign up for courses. We currently have 5 courses on the power of listening. And some of them are traditional courses where you can actually get certified and then you can appear on our TV show, The Listening Mentor, which is on Fridays. Or some of them are just based on learning how to use your breath and your singing voice, believe it or not, to be a better listener. So you can find all these courses on my website, drjacalyn.com. And finally, my second book is coming out. We are going to have a poll on the book cover. We actually have 5 book covers right now for people to help us decide. But the book is called Adversity to Awesome. And I have the first chapter of this book about something traumatic that happened to me that I never told anyone about. And then I have a number of authors, 9 other authors I've asked to submit a chapter. And you can actually pre-order this now on Amazon. And the paperback will be available April the 4th. So thank you. They're all the messages I have for today. If you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, we have typically 20 live broadcasts a week. That's why I'm not in the car driving anywhere. So you can go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and book your session. All right, we'll be coming right back with Talking Heads and Red O'Loughlin. You stay where you are. You can watch right from whichever platform you're on now. I'm going to run over to the other studio, and I'll be back shortly. Thank you. God bless you all.